Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, the 18th of September 2023, and welcome to Hindsight, where we learn to be a better trader. We're going to take a look at a trading idea that was executed today, and that trading idea came from Friday last week on this OZM video around the 20-minute mark. I talked about a really bizarre trading idea or a trading strategy, and I wanted to put it into practice this week, and it actually worked out really well. So thankfully there was something to trade today with this idea. And we're going to go through it on WC8. And here's the daily chart for this one. I'm showing you everything except today's candle, so you guys have a perspective of what it looked like this morning before it opened. So a rise to 47.5-ish, down to about 22 cents. So it tanked, and news came out today. This was a news announcement, a very nice long hit, 85 meters at 1% lithium and 218 meters at 0.8. The market cap was somewhere around 150 mil-ish, give or take. It's got about 680 million shares on issue. So it's not on the high end, but it's sort of mid to high in terms of shares on issue. And I'm going to show you the opening price. Now, the idea behind this one was to wait for it to come off and take the trade. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to take the opening trade. So there was a trade here from, I managed to get 2 cents out of this trade. I can't remember where it was, 45 to 47 or something like that. Nothing really interesting. The order book was really dodgy, really suspect order book, very heavy on the reloads. There was some, I suspect, retailers jumping the spread on this one. And basically, it just looked really nasty. It was topping out very quickly. And then we got our first breakdown, really. So we got a retest of the lows. And we all know, if you've been trading the last 6 months, if it retests the lows, it pretty much always just rolls over and fails. So we have our opening range here. So we have a horizontal here at the top at 49. We have the second candle here at 44. So this is going to turn out to be a range break. Now, there's no shorts available, which is really unfortunate. But the trading idea from last week was to look at the absolute worst case scenario for buying this stock. So a range break in of itself early morning isn't exactly, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's bad, and it's going to bounce and retest this level like it always does. So breakdown, retest, and we can expect a second breakdown. Right, so by the time a second breakdown arrives, so it'll be roughly around this level here, 41.5, this is going to be our second range break, which practically always happens once you have your first range break. So first range break, we retest, and we're going to break again. So that's expected. So there's no trade here to go long in this trading idea that I came up with last week. It's because this isn't the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is it definitely breaks through a second time, because at that point there is definitely no long trade in my mind. Now, I also want to preface this by saying that at 40 cents there was a 1 million share wall. So not only is there going to be a break from 41.5 for this to be awful, but to make this extra awful of a trade to the long side, it should crack this 40 cent level. So the plan was to pick this up, not at 39.5, not at 39, or maybe 39. The book was a little bit thin under 40. But the worst case scenario is a double break of the pivot, breaking the massive 40 cent wall, which had 1 million shares. And I think the other lines were about 100 to 120k shares at the max. So you had a massive wall at 40. The worst case scenario here is going to be a puke down to about 38, which is about 4 ticks below this wall at 40. For me, in my mind, it was 38 was going to be the bottom. I bought at 38.5. So what we end up having is another range break. Huge volume sell here. You can see very similar to, I think it was OZM, where you got tapering off volumes. That's fine. And then boom, you got another smack volume that says, fuck you. Fuck you if you're going long, because you're a shit trash trader that's going long on a double range break. What are you even doing going long here? You're going to get smashed. You're going to get mauled. And then anyone buying in front of this 40 level at 40.5 or whatever it was, I can't remember if it was 41 or 40, but I'm pretty sure it was 40-cent wall. And they're buying in front just to get murdered, and then they're forced to sell out because that support level's gone. So you're buying at 40.5 or 41, hoping this 40 level holds. It pukes, drops 2 cents. These traders are going to exit. This is their exit liquidity down here. So that was the idea, to catch this at 38.5. I tweeted it out around this time here as it bottomed out, the very bottom here. I tweeted out, I'm looking for 39 to 38. That was the play. I wasn't quite sure if it's going to be 39. It really depends on the buying power that comes in once this level gets broken, this 1 million wall, which you can see up the top left there. It says 1.48 million shares. So it was a bit bigger than I thought. So it bottoms out. I got it at 38.5, added on again at 38.5. I could have got 38, but I was a little bit greedy. And then there's this little bit here that had people concerned, right? I talked about my trading idea in Discord. I told people what I was doing. You know, I never tell others what to trade. I'm handing out my ideas and what I'm executing. And people were concerned about this part here, where it starts swinging back up and then it comes right back down to test 38. It's like, oh, we just got a little surge of volume, and you know, people just want this to go all in just one straight line and just swing back up. It doesn't really happen when you got 600 million shares plus. This was 680 million-ish. Market cap was pretty high. What was this, chilling at 300 million-ish? A little bit more, I think it was. Fully diluted, it was definitely more. And yeah, when you're at this market cap range and you've got a gap up this large as well. So what was the gap up? 90% gap up. It's like, I want this thing to get murdered before I get in. So there was a couple of criteria. So I'm not gonna give you guys absolutely every aspect of this trade in terms of the setup, because I only just discovered it and I'm still working on it. But there are conditions to this trade setup. It isn't just, hey, find the worst price possible with news and then just buy it. There's a few more conditions, but you know, there's only so much I'm willing to share. You know, I'm not going to just hand out absolutely every setup I do for free, but I'm just giving you an insight into the ideas and thought process on Friday of what I was planning to do today based on 4 other trades. And you can sort of piece it together from there. And then, of course, it just starts slowly grinding back up. Now, another aspect of this trade is something I just couldn't bring myself to quite do. And that was that this setup, once it starts reversing, I've noticed 2 things can happen. One is it breaks VWAP ever so briefly. And the second one is that if it does break VWAP, it tends to get to the first candle, the range of the first candle. It's not necessarily the open price, but it gets to within the range of the first opening candle, which I find really interesting because it breaks range to the upside. So it goes above this price here at 41.5. It goes past this second pivot point, which is the original range break, and then it gets all the way up to this this level here at 45 to 46, which is crazy. It is crazy. At any point in time, if I was to tell you this was a setup any time in the last 10 years, you'd laugh. You're just like, no, you're a fucking idiot. What do you mean you're buying at 38.5 on a double range break sell off on high volumes? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Now this, it is bizarre. It's not quite a setup that I've really seen before, and it seems very counterintuitive to be buying a dip on something that's sold off this badly. But it's been happening the last 4 trades. So this is my 5th trade that I've actually executed. This is an actual trade that I've taken. Now, as it was coming up and up, it was really slow and grindy. You know, if this had 300 million shares on issue, this would have happened way faster. In fact, I'm almost certain this part here would not have happened. It just probably would have grinded up without a break and retest. So here's sort of the break up, probably would have retested and moved like that, but instead it popped up, retested, and that's sort of that's probably a function of the fact that it has higher shares on issue. So I did take it out at 42.5 in multiple parcels because I was planning on getting some out at I think it was 42, 43 and a half, and 44 and a half or something like that. But I ended up just taking 42 and a half, and I think some at 42, which I'm still really happy with, don't get me wrong. 38.5 to 42 and 42 and a half. So in terms of percentage gain, pretty chuffed about that one. But it could have been a lot better if I stuck to the trading idea. So a good little 10, 11% move. The trade idea, like I said, tends to break VWAP, tends to get back to this range here, but it happens so slowly, and I did the unfortunate thing of looking at the order book. I know, shouldn't have done it. It's 11:30, 12 o'clock and midday. The order book doesn't mean shit. I know, guys. But when you see the order book absolutely thinned out on the bid, stacked on the offer, and you're wondering, after a double range break, barely making VWAP, you can see it's just barely getting to VWAP, and then eventually tickles it and comes off. You know, it's a psychological thing. You know, I really should actually actively practice turning off my market depth and really just trading the chart. And it eventually actually just gets there. It takes a couple of hours extra. You can see it gets up to 40, tickles 47, but really the exit liquidity probably would have been 46.5, which is effectively the top of the opening candle, which is surprising. You know, it's moved very slow. I was expecting, given the price action in the morning, more liquidity would come in hot, and I guess it does have a couple of little spikes, but not much follow through. And yeah, I guess I was expecting a little bit more, a little bit sooner, and you know, closing out here, while that's a nice trade, effectively could have doubled it. And you know, this is me just, yeah, effectively double. So yeah, so I'm happy with the trading idea that I have, and the conditions and the requirements behind it to get the stock where I need it to be when it ticks all the boxes. And this one did tick all my boxes. And yeah, so I guess next time I'll just practice a bit more patience, because I'm really not used to taking trades from 10:30 in the morning till all day long, like 1 o'clock. Like, stocks usually don't move very much in this sort of time period between 12 and 1, but it ended up grinding there and got there nicely. So I think a little bit more patience to be exercised, and maybe trust in the trading idea more. I think just because it's the very first time I've traded this trading plan, this trading idea, there wasn't, there was confidence there, but it wasn't like, it wasn't really A+ confidence, you know what I mean? Like this, to give you an idea, this kind of setup has never existed in my playbook in the last 10 years. Nothing even remotely close to this has existed. Buying the dip on a double range break on high volumes, and this just doesn't exist in my playbook. So I guess it doesn't really surprise me that psychologically I couldn't stand holding it for too much longer, especially when it couldn't get to VWAP around this time. It eventually got there and carried on. But I think this is a lesson for tomorrow and the rest of the week. If anything comes up, the trading idea will include the move to the opening candle. And of course, there are conditions where that's not going to work, right? If a stock is trading at 2 billion shares on issue, then this trade's probably not going to work. There's just too much sell pressure, and that's just not going to happen. I think, I haven't looked at it, but 40S might have been an example. Okay, not really, but this one's like 1.8 billion shares on issue, and there are levels here that I'd probably consider great in terms of buying, in terms of my setup that I just did on WC8. But the condition is that this has way too many shares on issue. Otherwise, there might be some levels here. You can't even see a range break. Where is the range? Like, this is the range from here to here at this point. And that's not very clean at all, because then you got to break the range, and there might have been a dip buy for 1 or 2 ticks at best. And these high share and issue stocks just aren't great for certain trades. And here's the daily chart for WC8, just to zoom out. So you can see a bit of resistance here at this level as well, a few baggies perhaps. But yeah, so that's the trading idea executed. And hopefully I'll be able to give you guys a very similar example to this, where a stock has, in my mind, completely failed and ends up, that complete failure point ends up being the buy level, and then actually holding it the whole way. So I got a good little dipping my toes in on this one, and hopefully in the next one we'll see a much better outcome. Alright guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.